Today we're going to walk through how to make a dynamic color changing dashboard based on a drop-down selection. So this could be people, locations, products, whatever you want to dynamically change the colors on. So let's dive right in. So here I have a starter template with just the layout, and I'm going to show you how to build this. So let's start off with a drop-down here, and then we'll go drop down from a range, and we'll pull this from our data. And so this will be our drop down options here. So this could be your names, your company, whatever it is there. And then I'm going to change this to an arrow. I just think it makes it look a little cleaner than the chip. So let's go ahead and select a name. Now, next, let's look at filling in these reps here. So we could just type these in manually. And if you have a pretty static set of locations or names, you could do that. If you want it to populate automatically, however, you could do something like unique or array, depending upon the type of data you have. In other words, do these names repeat? And so let's just pull in just like this. And currently we have more cells than we have over here. So let's go ahead and just restrict that for now. Let's come down to, I believe, 6. And then let's look up this score. So we have a colors that we're going to use, and then we have score and some sales for different years. So let's go ahead and bring this in. We can use something like VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP. So let's just do XLOOKUP for now. Makes things pretty streamlined. So we'll look at this. And then over here, we want to select the column with the names, comma, and the column with the results. And then we can just hit enter. And now we can just copy this formula and we'll paste it down here. And we can do formula only if we don't want it to mess up any of our formatting. All right, next I have a slight border here to show you how I have these sections set up. And so in this example, we have 5 years of data. And so I have 5 columns for this section. And then we have a spot up here at the top. And if you look at the original, that's where we put the year. And then down below, we put the total. And then we're using what's called a sparkline chart. So it's actually a formula in that cell. So that's the layout we have here. And so again, we can either reference it dynamically like this, or you can type it in, whichever works for you. And then we'll copy and paste that formula across. And then for here, this needs to update based on the selection. And so we can either use a VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP. We'll do XLOOKUP because it allows us to easily return multiple columns. So again, we're going to look at that rep. And then let's just select these columns for the sales and hit enter. And so now you can see there are those totals. So let's double check. Dwight for 2022, 154. So Dwight, 2022, 154. So it looks like that is bringing it across correctly. And then for the score, if we look over here, we just have a sparkline here and then our percentage down below. So this, we just use a formula there. So again, we can use VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP. I'll use VLOOKUP in this case, just to show you how that works as well. It's very similar. And so here we just select multiple columns instead of the first and then the results. And in this case, then we go 1, 2, 3, 4 to get the index, and then is sorted will just be false or an exact match. And so now we have the data in place. So now we can create our sparkline charts. And so I have a video on sparklines themselves, so I won't go into as much detail on how they're structured. I'm going to go into more detail on how we do this colors. So let's go ahead and just grab this one for now. Come over here. And then what we have is here's the sparkline formula. And then here's our data. So for our data, I'm pulling in this B17 cell, so the 75%. And that's right here. And then I'm subtracting that from 1. So on a percentage, I want to get the remaining. So this darker part is showing the 75%, and then this is 25. So how we come up with the 25% is when we do this. So 1 minus what we actually have gives us the remainder. And so then the rest of it, we have our chart type, which is a bar in this case for a progress. And then we have our color 1. So this is going to be our first primary color. And then we're doing another VLOOKUP. And this could, again, be XLOOKUP and then just A and B as the 2 columns. So what this is going to do is going to look up Dwight here in the data and return that primary color. Then it's going to look again for the color 2, which will be that 25%. And this one's returning column 3. So that's returning C. So the first color is returning this one, second color is returning that one. And it may look a little goofy here, but if we go back to our original, you can see the rest of our background is actually colored as well. And so I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Let's do our sales next. So again, I'm going to copy this formula here. It's not very hard. And so let's actually just create this from scratch just to walk you through that process as well. So Sparkline, and then I do curly brace to grab this data. Now, one thing, because I have this merged, you can see it's doing E17 through I18. So it's trying to grab 2 rows there, but we only want 1. So I'm just going to update that. And then we'll go to our next part of our options, and that again goes inside curly braces. So now we can do chart type, and then comma, and this would be column for this one. And if we just hit enter, you can see now it's returning the default. So let's go ahead and get rid of these borders here because we don't want them for the next part. So I'm going to remove all borders, and then I'm going to reset our outside borders here in a second. So for the outside borders, I'm adding a little bit of depth here by doing a single border on the top and left. And I'll do the same thing down here. And then coming back, and you have to reselect to change a setting here. But then I'm going to double thickness, and then doing that for the bottom and the right. And it just gives a subtle 3D pop and off of the page look there. All right, so now we have the basics. Now we need to add the color to this. This is right now just black. It's not looking with that VLOOKUP like this one is. So if we look at here, on a column, we only have color. We don't have color 1 and color 2 because there's not 2 different options showing up. So we go over here, and then we do a semicolon to separate our options, and then color, comma, and now we can do our VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP. I'll do XLOOKUP in this case, just to switch it up. And as you can probably tell, they are very interchangeable and play a lot of similar roles. So let's do our primary color, and then close it out, and there we go. So there's our base. Now what we need to do is add a couple more things. So on this one, if we select the different names, it highlights that row here, and then it's also changing the background color on these. So let's look at how to do that. So we accomplish that using conditional formatting. And so we're going to have to go row by row on this because we have a different color for each one. And this one, we will have to set the color manually. And so make sure that you've added it here. And the way you do that is when you add a RGB color, unless you're picking one as a default here, but if you have your own colors, you can add it by going to custom, paste in that hex or the RGB, hit OK. And then when it's in that cell like this, and you actually can see it, then it will be available for your custom colors in that section there. So let's go back over here. So this one, if we go here, you can see that first color is right there. And this one, we'll go ahead and change the text to white just to make it more readable. The other ones we might leave the same. And then we're going to scroll down to custom formula is on the rules. And then what we're going to do on all of these is very similar. So we're going to do equals, and then we're going to do B7. And what we're doing here is we're looking at this cell. So B and 7, and then we're going to compare it to that dropdown. So is it equal to B4? And you can see that is true. So it has 2 equals. So I know it's a little funny, but basically this is just starting our formula. And then what's actually happening here is B7 equal to B4. And we have to lock it to make sure it doesn't change or move around as it's evaluating. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to copy this rule and just tweak this part for each row. So if we go here, we're going to add another rule so we don't have to do it from scratch. We can change this to 8 and change our color. just like that. And now if we check, if we go to gym, it changed it to there, but our apply to range didn't change. So we need to change this to 8 as well, just like that. And now you can see it's applying the right one. If we go back up to Dwight, now it's working. So we'll have to do this as we go down. So let's click in here. We can go down to gym. Let's go ahead and just copy this one. And so we need to make sure we do this apply to range and then our rule here. And then these are just going to be the same. And then change this one to that one. And then we can go down here, copy this. And then this will come down for Stanley. And now if we go down to Stanley, you can see it's working just like that. So for these sections, we can actually use a very similar rule, but we need it to be on that secondary color. So if we select this, for example, we can hit add another rule, and then we can actually add both of these sections to it. And so go ahead and select that. And then what we're going to do here is custom formula again. And we're going to do very similar to what we just did. So equals, and then B7 equals to B4. And then this will be our first color. So what we did for this was just blue. And now if we go down to gym, you can see it resets to that gray. So we just need to take this and apply it the same way, just like we did that one. So let's go ahead and make another one. Now this one, the apply to range is going to be the same. We're not shifting it down every time. We're changing the same one. So all we have to do is change this and that color. So this one will be green. And then add another row again, 9, and this one will be a yellow. And so again, if you had added the secondary ones down here, you could pick them from down there. I'm just using ones from up here. And then apply one more. And this one is orange. All right, so now if we come up here and we scroll down, you can see that everything is updating dynamically based on our drop-down setting. All right, so that is it for today's video on our dynamic color changing dashboard for Google Sheets. Make sure to check out the other videos on our channel for more tutorials on both Google Sheets and AppScript. And as always, have a great day.